I turn it back to our chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Cohen. The next meeting is the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management, which will be chaired by Vice Chair Jeff Linford. Vice Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today's meeting of the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management is being held in public session. The committee met earlier today in executive session to discuss matters related to ongoing negotiations or reviews of contracts or proposals. At this point, I ask the Secretary to advise those present of the composition of the committee and any commissioner recusals on the matter before the committee.
The committee is composed of Vice Chairman Linford, the committee chair, Chairman O'Toole, the committee vice chair, Commissioners Helmy, LaBarbera, and Rosado. Also present today are Commissioners Bolwage, Cohen, Eve, Fisher, Kelly, McCabe, and Richardson. There are no requests for actions, no recusals required.
Thank you. I will now call on our Chief Development Officer, Derek Utter, to present the capital performance results for the first quarter of 2024. Derek, good to see you.
Great. Thank you, Vice Chairman, and good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm here to report the first quarter capital plan results. Spending, as you see on the slide, was $559 million, which is up from the first quarter of 2023 quite substantially, but even so, it was spending only about 80% of our budgeted amount for the first quarter. We also hit 93% of our planned schedule milestones for the first quarter, and I'll go into both of those in a little more detail. So if you look at our spending, we often track spending to ensure that the machine of the Port Authority is driving our projects forward. This quarter we spent, as I said, 81%. If you look at the history of the last several years, we have typically spent below our total budgeted amount, but we target trying to get to at least 90% of our budgeted amount. The last couple of years have been a little bit lower than that. The first quarter, really a large underspending, was driven primarily by the initial gradual startup of two big projects. One is at the JFK Airport, the Roads, Utilities, and Ground Transportation Center, which is the core of the Port Authority work in the Central Terminal area. We have let a contract last year, and we're in the process of ramping up significantly. If you go to the airport, you will see a tremendous amount of construction going on the roads, and that's the evidence of that project really starting to move forward in earnest. The second is the Midtown Bus Terminal. As we work through the final phases of the environmental study, we anticipate that spending of that will continue to ramp up and will go into construction shortly. In terms of on-time results, this is more of a metric that weights our smaller projects because it measures both the end of the pre-construction period, we call contract award, and then the construction period. So every project has two milestones. Because smaller projects get weighted equally as larger projects, they tend to influence this statistic more. We hit 14 of our 15 planned milestones on or ahead of target in the first quarter. We also achieved 12 milestones that were planned later in the year early, which is great. You'll see that our performance last year was a little bit lower than we'd like to achieve, and we really spent the beginning part of this year dissecting the problems that we had in achieving our scheduled milestones. You'll see evidence of the improvement in the first quarter. We expect that we're going to try to keep it at that level through a lot of process improvements and focuses on some of the areas where we had the shortfalls last year. Lastly, just to give you a sense of some of the projects that were delivered, contract awards, again, the first milestone, several smaller projects, as you see listed on this list, most in the category of state of good repair. Projects that are completed, we call put into beneficial use. That's the end of construction, and I'll note one at the top, the Path Harrison Station, the Southwest Head House. This was a critical step where we opened on February 21st. This new part of the Harrison Station Head House, it is accessible. It was built with resilience in mind above the floodplain and has on-site water retention tubs, pools, tanks, and it has public plaza and seating. It has 82 new bikes parking spots, and it was really necessary because it replaced an 88-year-old structure. So very proud of that opening, and you'll see some of the other projects that went to beneficial use as well listed on the page. So that concludes my report. Happy to answer any questions.
Hearing none, this concludes today's meeting of the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management. And back to our chairman.